Hello, this is Jamie the D, and welcome to Wipeout. Wipeout was a game made in 1995 by Psygnosis and the Designers Republic, and we're going to be playing time trial first to show the craft handling, and then we're going to play a race to show how the race will utterly fuck that up. Now, Altima VII is our first track. It is supposedly in Canada, which is silly for reasons we'll go into, and we're going to be playing with the FEISAR. Now, if you haven't worked out that this game is anti-gravity hovercraft racing in the far future, then I really can't help you. But FEISAR are pretty much the UN of anti-gravity racing. We'll describe them in more detail in a bit, and we've left the loading screens in basically to give me more time to talk about things like acceleration. Now, there is a boost in this game, but it's an absolute bitch to do. And there are two classes of racing in this game. Venom, which is slow, and Rapier, which really isn't. In time trial, you get one free boost. That icon at the top is a turbo boost, although it's not entirely clear. And you get one of those per lap. Now, controls are very simple. Left for left, right for right. Pitch control is up and down, and that's quite important. We'll see that we're pitching the nose up for this jump, just as we pitched the nose down for the last one, and I'll explain that when we come to the race. But first, let's talk about FEISAR. FEISAR are, as I mentioned, the UN of anti-gravity racing. They don't have a clear leader. They're made of a coalition of nations, mostly European, and they were created as a response to the Japanese takeover of one of the other teams, AG Systems, who were the original creators of the anti-gravity hovercraft here. They're very good at handling, and they're very light. Unfortunately, their top speed is absolutely terrible, and while their acceleration is great, they can't even get all the way up the bar without the assistance of boost pads. Boost pads, by the way, will accelerate you a very large amount. So large, in fact, that the normal acceleration bar doesn't cover it in this game. Picking pilots, by the way, doesn't really change anything. It doesn't change the stats of the craft, it's just a skin. But this is one of two games in the series where the pilots actually have bios. And Paul Jackson, for example, is 26. He's a bit of a mystery, really. Nobody actually knows anything about Paul Jackson, apart from the fact that he's British and he's 26. Now, obviously in a time trial, your racing line is important, and as such, track readability is important. If you were playing this on the PC, PSX, or the Saturn, when they first came out, instead of this nice anti-aliased emulated version I'm playing, then you'd find that the track readability for a couple of the harder corners in Altima VII is absolutely terrible, especially on the PC version. Now, there are also weapons in this game. We'll be showing off a few when the race goes on. But before we do, look at that! This is a very green Canada with white cliffs. Very strange. But yeah, racing line. It's generally a good idea to go outside, inside, outside on a corner, not like I'm doing. But there are exceptions. Boost pads, for example, can change this formula pretty harshly, because they give you a fair bit of acceleration. And also chicanes. Then of course, as we'll see in race mode, there are also racers who will cock up your racing line. Now, another control I haven't talked about, because really we're going to be dealing with it in the next episode, is air brakes. The FEISAR's handling is so good that on the first track, you really don't need air brakes. And the FEISAR is an okay choice for Venom class races because of its good handling. Unfortunately, Rapier class in Wipeout 1, the top speed, the gap gets bigger because the stats effectively double, and the handling is actually too responsive. We'll get into that when we get into Rapier class, but for now we're going into a race. Now, the race AI, Wipeout 1, mostly follows a fairly fixed racing line. Obviously this can get cocked up by the other players attacking each other, which they will do, but there are certain things that the AI likes to do to you and to the other players. Now, I didn't really explain the boost mechanic, and I'm going to do so now. Essentially, you notice there are several bars of acceleration. If you can get the acceleration, that's the red, to exactly the third bar from the right, specifically the line of the third bar to the right, then you'll get a boost. If you get it over, like I'm going to do here, you lose all your acceleration, you stall. If you get it under, nothing happens, but you have to be exactly on that line, and that's an absolute git in the first game. Luckily, Venom class, it's not exactly challenging, so you lose acceleration uphill for turning too fast, or indeed for air braking. You can brake fully using both air brakes, but really, who the hell's gonna do that? So we'll... Shockwave. That announcer voice is warning us that somebody was trying to use a weapon in our near vicinity. Luckily we passed a guy, so it probably hit the guy behind us, but the shockwave effectively makes your controls less responsive. When you accelerate a lot. When you... there was mines I was using, and that's the shockwave. Doesn't really work on AI players. Mines, you drop 4 mines in quick succession. These are best left all the way across the track. And the missile, as you can tell, slows you down quite a lot. Unlike the other games in the series, weapons don't damage you, they only slow you. Same with wall collisions, and again, unlike every other game in the series, there is only one type of wall collision, and that is the kind that will slow you down. If you hit the wall really hard, it'll flip you, but I don't believe I'll be showing that off. Other things that slow you down include being hit from the side. You'll notice in a second that the AI tries to get in front of you and then stops you from accelerating using the boost pads. They love this trick because hitting someone from behind not only slows you down but accelerates them. Luckily, the reverse is also true. I'm not sure if we see that in this video, but yeah, it's a useful trick if you can get it to work. Now, on the third lap of this race, I'll be showing what happens when you don't pitch balance right. Here, for example, you basically want to get as level with the track as possible. Too high, and you bounce a little, which slows you down slightly. too low, and you smack into the track, which slows you down more. Because you're not only bouncing, you get a speed loss right there. And as you can see, we've also got another icon. This is the dumbfire rocket. It has a hell of a lot of speed loss if it hits someone, but since it's unguided, you have to be pretty careful with it. See? And if it weren't for the fact that the AI player was too close behind us, there in the Kyrex, we could have actually mined him. Yeah, you may be noticing a lot, well, not a lot of visual difference between the ships, but it is there. For example, the FEISAR is pretty bulky looking with 2 thrusters, and the Kyrex here just has 1 large thruster, possibly representing its better top speed, but its terrible handling. Either way, if we go up here, air resistance kicks in, and we don't go as far. This happens on slope jumps. If we didn't pitch up there, we would have hit the ground ever so slightly and slowed down. And here, there we go, we've bounced and we've also lost speed. When you bounce, you aren't moving as far forward, so even though it doesn't look like a slowdown, it is actually a slowdown. So you want to minimize your bounce. Luckily, we're pretty free and clear for the rest of this lap. So let's say another thing about FEISAR. While FEISAR has never, or rather very rarely, been a top runner, the team is well known for giving other pilots a boost up, because the easy handling of the craft allows pilots to train for better craft. So there are a lot of pilots who go on to great things with other teams from FEISAR. This has been Jamie the D. We'll see you next time for Carbonis and the Oricom. Take care.